So what will this new year bring to real estate? It's 2022. Happy New Year. It's The Real Estate Show. Welcome to The Real Estate Show. My name is Rick Naples. As you know, I'm the owner of Zone Realty LLC. You zone your home. Well, we're starting a new year, 2022. Is this year going to be like previous years? You know, 2021 was a big challenge in real estate. Not so much like 2020 was. But we're still dealing with the pandemic out there, and the pandemic changed the way a lot of us do business. As an individual business owner here in our state, I found challenges to try and keep my doors open, like many businesses did. You had to be creative. You had to find ways to get around or to work with certain restrictions that were put on us as we were trying to do our business. Luckily in 2020, real estate agents were considered necessary business people. So we were able to continue doing our business. We weren't one of those groups that had to cease and desist, as they say. So we were able to survive that first year of the COVID pandemic. Of course, we had to adapt. We had to put protocols in place. We had to do things a little bit different. Had to take precautions, simple things, wearing masks, bringing disinfectants with us, stopping open houses, not doing home tours. A lot of different things had changed. I kept doing the real estate show as best I could, and even the real estate show had some challenges back then. The television station closed down for safety reasons, and I had to do everything from off-site and then bring it in and have the people at Nutmeg TV do all the editing. So I didn't have the hands-on that I normally had with the real estate show. There were a lot of challenges. The real estate market itself presented a lot of challenges. And as I mean by that is people were cautious when it came to buying or selling a home. Now, as we got through 2020 and went into 2021, we had a lot of hope that year, this past year, would have been a better year than the previous year. In a lot of ways it was, and in a lot of ways it stayed kind of the same. We did see everything start to relax a little bit because of the vaccinations. Some things starting to open up, activities starting to come back. Some states got rid of their mask mandates and people were able to start gathering together. But then what happens? We let our guard down and COVID came roaring back with a new version. And of course, that caused a lot of problems. So we went back to taking some precautions. Not as strict as we were before, because as I said, a lot of people got vaccinated. But we were still moving forward with a lot of cautiousness when it came through the year of 2021. Now, how did we do? How did the real estate market do in 2021? Well, houses were selling. We saw some very interesting effects happen during the course of the year. Because the inventories were down, we saw a lot of houses that came on the market being bid for by a number of buyers. And we had a lot of competition for those houses that were up for sale. We heard all the stories in 2021 of buyers getting a little bit frenzied about buying a house and overbidding. In other words, the seller would be asking so much for this particular home, and buyers were offering over the asking price. It got a little crazy. During the early part of the year, as the spring season came and the season came in 2021, we started seeing ridiculous offers being made on houses. It was a seller's bonanza. Unfortunately, it froze out the first-time buyer because they just couldn't compete. And it kind of changed the market a little bit. Whose effects are we going to see on this market in 2021 when people were overpaying for houses? Well, we'll know in 5 or 10 years when they go to resell those houses as to whether or not they're going to be able to make up those differences. Maybe not. We can't predict that far out at this particular point. As we went through the rest of the year, things started to get a little bit better. Not perfect, but a little bit better. Instead of seeing a home come on the market and having a frenzy of a number of buyers overbidding on the house and houses selling in one day, sometimes in 1 hour, we started seeing a normalization start to happen. Now, what I mean by that is we started to see a house come on the market. Buyers would go out and look at the house, and when an offer came in, the offer would come in just below or maybe asking price. We didn't see that overbidding. It started to slow down a little bit. We also saw the timing, as far as the time when a house sells to the time it closes, start to normalize a little bit. But did the market get 100% back by the end of 2021? Well, I'll talk about that right after this presentation. As a broker here in the state of Connecticut, doing real estate marketing, I found big changes that I had to kind of adjust to. One of the tools that realtors use, as I've mentioned many times here on the Real Estate Show, is the tool called the open house. This is, of course, when you list a house for sale, and then on a weekend, usually on a Sunday, you open the house for those people that might be interested in coming and take a look at it. No appointments are needed. You just have a specific time for the open house, and a potential buyer comes in and walks through the house, takes a look at it, and you go from there. Open houses were a big tool for real estate agents to try and get the house marketed. But with COVID, all of a sudden we couldn't do open houses. So both in 2020 and last year in 2021, we had to make adjustments. We were told by guidelines not to hold open houses because of the spread of the disease. We didn't want to have people who we didn't know coming into homes who we did not know whether they were carriers or not of the disease. And sellers chose not to do open houses because they wanted to limit the amount of strangers, per se, coming through their homes. We had to take different precautions too when it came to show a house as opposed to not doing an open house. Realtors would schedule a showing or a visit with their buyer to come to the home, and the realtor would have to take precautions and carry a disinfection kit. In other words, the realtor would say to the buyer, "We're going to go look at this house. When we go into the house, please allow me, your realtor, to open any doors or cabinets or whatever that you might want to take a look in. Don't you as the buyer, or please as the buyer, avoid touching things." So we as the realtor would go into the house, we would show it to our buyer, and then we would tell the buyer, "Okay, you can go out, you've seen the house, give me a few minutes." And the buyer would leave the house, and the realtor would then break out their disinfectant tools and go through the house and quickly wipe down everything that they touched. Of course, while all this was going on, everybody was wearing masks. Most realtors were wearing gloves, so it was an extra layer of protection on top of that. But it made it very difficult. Anyone who knows me personally knows that I'm a talker. My mother says I was given the gift of gab. I like to talk. I like to tell stories. I like to have conversations. Well, I found that a little bit of a challenge because when you're wearing a face mask and you're trying to talk to someone, you have to worry about that face mask staying in place. How many of us have constantly been adjusting our masks while we're having a conversation because it keeps sliding down the face as you're talking? That was another unique thing experienced in 2021 that you normally wouldn't experience in a real estate market. There were other things too that had to be adjusted to. Ways of entering a home, ways of the way you show the home, as I said, what you do when you were leaving the home. Even if the house was vacant, you still took precautions. And in some cases, you had sellers requesting that the realtor only come by themselves without the buyer. Well, this is interesting. Someone's interested in buying your home because you're selling it, and they won't even come to the house. Instead, the realtors were going to the house, and with the permission of the seller, they were using their cell phones to videotape what was called a walkthrough. So they would go in the house and they would talk as they were walking through the house, showing its different features, and then they would take this video that they created and they would send it to the buyer. So another phenomenon we saw created in 2020 was buyers purchasing homes without even physically going through them. Sounds crazy, huh? But it was happening. They were relying on their realtor to take videotape or pictures of a home for sale and relay that information to them. That, in combination with the data they were looking on a website about the house, would help them make a decision as to whether they wanted to make an offer. And there were cases where some buyers did not see the house they purchased until the day they did a walkthrough or even after they closed. Insane. But they did what they needed to do. The market shifted back and forth. It would get crazy, and then it would start to normalize, and then it would get busy again. Realtors just tried to stay the course. We tried to do our business the way we do our business and do the best we could on behalf of our sellers or our buyers. Let's take a quick look at this little presentation, and I'll be back with some more comments on where we've been and perhaps where we're going to go. It's a brand new year. The new year is here. The new year is our opportunity to restart, to set new goals, to realize some new dreams. Everybody makes what's called New Year's resolutions. And perhaps your New Year resolution is in this year, you're going to buy a house. So we're all going to be watching the market to see what it does. Now, all the articles that are out there, news reports that are out there, all the real estate gurus are all making predictions as to what's going to happen in this year, 2022. Is it going to be 2020 again? Or 2021 again when it comes to the pandemic? Or are things going to get better? Is the housing inventory going to increase because sellers have more confidence in putting their houses on the market and having people come through their houses taking a look at it? Are buyers going to still be aggressively looking at houses when they want to buy them? What's going to happen with the interest rates? And what about the prices of houses in general? Well, here are some of the things that I've come across when I've read articles and talked to fellow realtors. First of all, we know that mortgage interest rates are going to go up this year in 2022. The Fed has said that they're going to raise interest rates at least 3 times during the course of the year. Now, of course, when interest rates go up, that affects everything that we buy, and it affects, of course, loans, of course, mortgage loans. So, should you buy a house towards the beginning of the year, or should you buy a house towards the end of the year? Well, you might find yourself in a situation where the beginning of the year might work better because the interest rates are still lower. But then again, we don't know how much the Fed is going to raise the interest rates. Usually an interest rate, when they raise it, they'll raise it 1/4 point, which is not a big deal. But we have seen in history interest rates going up as much as 1/2 point or more. So that's a big concern in 2022. What about house prices? What's going to happen to house prices? Well, I read all kinds of articles, and I've already seen the trend of house prices going up. But first of all, let me say this. Homes go up in value every year. It's just a nature fact. How much they go up in value depends on the house itself. And yes, there are houses out there that won't go up in value for obvious reasons. But on the average, homes will go up in value from the time they were bought to the time they're sold. The question is in 2022, how much of an increase is there going to be? Now, I can't put an exact number on it because I've heard 10%, I've heard 15%, and I've even heard some outrageous things like 27% increases in the prices of homes. And for a first-time buyer, that's scary because if you were having a tough time trying to buy a house last year, this coming year may be even tougher to try and find and buy a home. But on the flip side, we're seeing the economy slowly start to creep back, and we're starting to see employers sweeten the pot as far as income is concerned. So hopefully incomes will raise a little bit to compensate for the increase in interest rates and also the ability to purchase a home even though the prices have gone up a little bit. Of course, the other thing is everything that happened in 2021 as far as being able to do things to houses that you own. Remodeling costs went way up. The price of wood, the price of metal, just everything went crazy. And it was much more expensive for you to redo your kitchen or your bathrooms or your flooring or whatever in 2021. Will that be the same in 2022? Well, again, maybe, maybe not. If they can get a handle on getting products shipped from the ports to the stores and the economy keeps going in the right direction, we might see prices come down. How that will affect the real estate market might be a little bit too early to tell. Usually when I do the real estate show, I try to take a look back each quarter. So when we do a show come this next March, or April, I should say, we'll take a look at the first quarter of the year to see if we can better get a handle on where things are going. This is the portion of the real estate show I call my final thought. It's kind of my spin on what the subject of the show is, or my opportunity to bring up anything specific that I feel might be important to share with you, my viewers. As I said, when you come upon a new year, as you're starting a new year, you kind of in between all the preparations that you do, and of course thinking about the inevitable taxes you may have to pay, you kind of look forward to that new year because it's a new start. And you start laying goals, or you start making plans, or like I said, you make those New Year resolutions. I always like to give the advice to friends and family when it comes to making New Year's resolutions. Be realistic. Make a resolution of something that you're going to do or try that is an achievable goal. And make small ones so you can achieve those as you go along. It's nice to have dreams. It's nice to have some big goals, but maybe a year time is not enough to achieve those goals. Give yourself a lot of time to be able to achieve the resolutions that you want to make. And as I said, set those resolutions in such a way where they're achievable for you. If you decide that you want to get into the real estate market, please do your research. Look at what's out there. Look at your personal finances and make sure you're ready to jump into the market. But also, make sure you're ready to become a homeowner, because you don't want to get all excited about buying a home and not consider some of the responsibilities that come along when you own a home. My name is Rick Naples, and this has been the Real Estate Show. Happy New Year, and I'll see you next time.